Hello Stonehill fans, and welcome to another edition of Skyhawk Update. I'm Craig Riotto, and I'm joined once again by Brendan Murray, who is back with us after a couple of weeks off. And Brendan, you sure picked a good show to jump back into, as it was a wildly successful week for the Skyhawks.
That's right, Craig. It was a busy week here at the Hill, as usual, with 2 Skyhawk teams beginning their seasons, while another 3 were wrapping things up. We'll have highlights from the hardwood and the ice, as well as a report on the President's Cup race and a recap of cross-country's national championship endeavors. So without further ado, let's get it started, and we're going to kick things off with the women's volleyball team. That women's volleyball team traveled to New Haven, Connecticut last week to take on the #1 seeded University of New Haven in the first round of the NE10 conference tournament. The Skyhawks were looking to play spoiler, but fell to an early 2-0 deficit against the favored Chargers. But they refused to go down easily, rallying back to tie the match at just 2 games apiece, sending it to a tie-breaking 5th game. But the attack of the Chargers was just too much to handle as they took the game 15-8, ending Stonehill's season. There was a silver lining for the squad, however, as 2 players were honored by the coaches of the NE10 conference, with sophomore Emily Iverson being named to the 2nd all-tournament team, while senior Erin Kelly was named to the 3rd team. The women's basketball team kicked off its season with a busy week, starting their season taking on conference foe St. Anselm's before hosting the Stonehill College Tip-Off Classic. Let's see how they fared in that opening conference matchup. You can see here Stonehill gets off to a tough start. They would find themselves in a big hole here near the end of the first half as St. Anselm drains one from outside the arc. St. Anselm's would extend that lead in the second half and get it as high as 15, but Abby Lenin would check in for the Skyhawks, and she'd start to cut into the lead. There's a big 3-pointer, and on the very next possession, she'd steal it, run the length of the court, she'd get fouled on the layup, hit both shots, she'd add one more 3-pointer on the next possession. Here we are, under a minute left in the game. Skyhawks down 3. ML Dixon drives into the lane off the pick from Riotto, trying to find a way in. She dishes it over to Lalim. Lalim's going to find Asia Ewing behind the arc. She squares, puts it up. It's good, and that would send the game to overtime. The Skyhawks coming back all the way from 15 points down. And in the overtime period, early here, this would be Lalim drives in. She gets a tough defense, no foul called, but ML Dixon with the great steal on bringing the ball up over to Riotto. She would put it in, and that would seal the deal for the Skyhawks. They would go on to win by a final score of 67-62 in overtime. Stonehill was led by Dixon with 16 points and Amy Peltier with 17 points. Asia Ewing and Tori Riotto also coming up big for the Skyhawks with double digits, 14 and 12 each.
And how about the 3-point shooting? 47.8% from beyond the arc. That really carried the Skyhawks in that second half and allowed for them to make that big comeback.
I'll take out my gray hair. Thankfully I get it colored. But I think there's the goods of this is there's a lot of teaching points to this game. A lot of things that we're going to be able to review, especially on the defensive end. With playing 2 games right away, we have an opportunity to make those fixes right away, and that'll help us going into another NE10 game next week.
Next up for the Skyhawks was the opening match of that Stonehill Tip-Off Classic. They would take on Goldie Beacon College, who they handled 79-42. Amy Peltier once again led the Skyhawks. She had 20 on the day, an absolute great start to the season with 2 nice games from her. And the next contest in that Tip-Off Classic, the last one of the week for the Skyhawks, would be a much closer affair, as Stonehill would have to come back in that game. They were down at halftime. They would come back in the very final seconds of that game to win by just 1 point, 43-42, a much lower scoring affair.
You know, the Skyhawks didn't have the offense that day, but they proved they can win a game by leaning on that defense. They played some solid D against Caldwell.
So that'll wrap up the weekend for the women's basketball team. We'll stay with basketball, head over to the men's team. They tipped off NE10 play with what proved to be a hard-fought battle against the Hawks of St. Anselm's on Wednesday night. You see here, we'll go right to the second half. Skyhawks down 1 after the Hamer miss. Raheem May Thompson gets it to fall. He would miss the foul shot, so Stonehill only up 1. But here, a big defensive stop by Stonehill with less than a minute left. The shot is missed. Rebound still no good. Stonehill brings down the rebound, and Jack Cole would get the loose ball foul and hit a shot to tie it up. And now here, Hamer trying to end the game in the last seconds of regulation. A tough physical play there. You can see here a lot of contact on the shot. Could have been a foul call. Tough to see from that angle. and the half-court prayer, would go unanswered. We go to overtime, and here Marco ties it in overtime. 4 minutes left in the overtime period. Now Marco with the ball again, over to Fazzini. He put the Skyhawks on top, and then Brian Hamer would slam the door shut on the Skyhawk victory with a nice move into the lane here. A good lay-in extends the lead, and Stonehill goes on to win 81-73 in overtime. Hamer led the team with 17 points. Marco with a big day on the offensive side of the ball with 13 points and 6 assists. Jack Cole and Mitch Emilio rounding out the high scorers for Stonehill with 11 points apiece.
Stonehill got a little more than they were bargaining for in this opening contest against St. A's, but that is the kind of play they're going to see from their opponents throughout the year with that massive target on their back after their phenomenal season last year.
And I think it's going to be a great way to start off that conference season, particularly with a huge game coming up on Tuesday against Franklin Pierce.
Stonehill dropped the puck on its conference schedule Wednesday night against Southern New Hampshire University. After running the Division III gauntlet last week, the Skyhawks were coming off of a 3-game skid. Would all of that tough hockey pay off when it mattered most? Let's go to the tape and find out. Stonehill in the white, Southern Connecticut in the yellow, and the Skyhawks had their chances early. Here's a one-timer from Borges to Williams, but it's denied by Holsky. Taziopoulos would respond on the other end with a great save of his own. Southern Connecticut breaks out on the 3-on-2, and Taziopoulos deflects it away. Now in the first period, winding down, Stonehill leading by 1, the Penmen on the power play. Jim Gabrione finds Stephen Berry, who buries it in the back of the net. That is the first goal of the season for the Penmen. It is their first game. We flip ends. Midway through the second period, freshman Robbie Dorgan tracks the puck down, passes it behind the net to Borges, and Green puts it on. Borges cleans it up. That's a great celebration from the senior captain as he finds his 7th goal of the season. Stonehill leads 2-1. Big hit here by Andrew Miller. He cleans out Chet Wisnowski. And you can hear the commentary by Nick Toyes. He had it all on camera for us. Look at this in slow motion. That might be our hit of the year. Stonehill holding on to that lead. Now we go late in the third. Stonehill leading 3-1, and this will be the finishing touch. Brendan Green puts it on net, and junior Brian Rooney cleans up the rebound. That's his 4th goal of the season. Skyhawks go on to win by a final score of 4-1. They take care of business at home against Southern New Hampshire in that conference game. Carey and Borges turning out great stuff for the Skyhawks offensively. They are really clicking now. And they would play one more contest against Assumption, and here they explode offensively, scoring 9 goals. Unbelievable stuff. They made mincemeat out of Assumption on the road, Brendan, and it was just a smoke show right from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, 9 goals is ridiculous in and of itself, and me and you were going over some of the facts from the game last night, and we saw in the third period it was 8-0. I mean, they got out to such a dominant start, and that's got to give them a lot of confidence going forward here early in the season.
The President's Cup is awarded annually to one of 16 teams in the Northeast 10 Conference for demonstrating overall athletic success in both men's and women's varsity sports. Incredibly, Stonehill has won this honor 3 years in a row. And with the conclusion of the fall season finally at hand, we have an update for you. As you can see here, Stonehill is leading those President's Cup standings. They are tied with American International at 77 points apiece. Adelphi nipping at their heels with 70. Now, just to give you a little breakdown of how this President's Cup works. For instance, we go to the football standings. Stonehill, with their 4th place finish, was able to earn 6 points for the Skyhawks overall for that finish in the standings. And that is because there are 9 teams, Brendan, in the Northeast 10 football standings. So, consequently, there are 9 points available for the top-seeded team. And then you can see as it counts down, 2nd place earns 8, 3rd place earns 7. So we take a quick look here now at Stonehill's breakdown of the fall season, points earned, and courtesy of men's and women's cross country, how about 32 combined points? Incredible stuff, giving Stonehill a huge edge. Volleyball earning 9, women's soccer earning 8. So you can see the sports that have more teams involved in the Northeast 10 obviously having more points up for grabs. Now we take one more quick look at the final standings at the conclusion of the fall season. Like I said, Stonehill with 77. Got to watch out for UMass Lowell and Bentley, as they will likely make a nice charge here in the winter and spring seasons. But Stonehill excels in the wintertime with those two basketball programs, hockey also improving, and then indoor track as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of shifting in these standings. You know, AIC not known as a basketball powerhouse in this conference, and some of the bigger basketball teams, we talked about Franklin Pierce being in the top 10 nationally for basketball. Bentley, UMass Philadelphia, always teams to watch in basketball. So those teams are going to be on the rise, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that President's Cup lines up when the winter season is all said and done going into the spring.
And how incredible would it be for these seniors to win the President's Cup 4 times in their stay here in their Stonehill Skyhawks careers? That would just be unheard of, unprecedented. Stonehill Cross Country joined 32 other teams on Saturday as they traveled all the way to Joplin, Missouri for the national championships. It was the 10th straight appearance for the men's team at the national event. Sophomore Brian Wilcox raced to the Skyhawks' top finish on the afternoon, placing 131st overall in 31 minutes and 48 seconds on the 10-kilometer course. Senior John Hanlon finished 176th overall, while classmate Ethan Penny crossed in 190th place at 32 minutes and 42 seconds. The women's team joined the men in Missouri and fared slightly better at the national championship event, finishing in 23rd of 32 teams. Senior captain Carolyn McBride posted the Skyhawks' top finish on the afternoon, racing to 83rd overall on the 6-kilometer course in 22 minutes flat. Junior Chelsea Bishop ranked 98th overall with a time of 22 minutes and 18 seconds, while senior captain Kristen Veet finished 150th in 22 minutes and 46. The women earned their 13th appearance at the national championships. Just incredible dynasty kind of status here for Stonehill Cross Country, as they also took down their 4th straight East Region title 2 weeks ago. Coach Bowen's comment after about the women: "It's been a great season for these women. Not once have they stepped on the line and had a bad day." So Stonehill goes against the nation's very best, and they fare pretty darn well.
Well, that's just going to about wrap it up here for this week's show. And Craig, I got to say, it was a pretty successful week for the Skyhawks as they combined for 6 wins and 2 teams with national championship appearances.
It was a very, very great week for the Skyhawk. I think that's right on the mark, Brendan, and I'm sure there's plenty more where that came from. We would like to thank all of the athletes for their efforts, as always, providing us with excellent highlights. We'd also like to thank all our viewers for tuning in to Skyhawk Update. For those on campus, you can catch us all year long on Channel 9 or find us on YouTube anytime by searching Skyhawk Update. We're also on Twitter and Facebook, so feel free to follow us and like our page. That's at Skyhawk Update. Again, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Safe travels, and of course, go Skyhawks! Skyhawks!